mic. Support this man. As long as you're in the middle, we're good. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I know it feels weird to speak in a microphone when you have a smaller crowd, but we record all of these lunch and learns, and so and today is a great one. We've got a fantastic speaker. James Medina is somebody I've known since he was in high school. I mean, he was when I first came to Wooddale Church as the high school pastor. James was in the senior class, and he was like, "You're the fifth high school pastor in 5 years. How long are you going to last?" And I grew to love this young man, and God has used James and his family in incredible ways, and I'm so proud of James. James would go on to work for Cru, and then Destino, which is the Spanish-speaking ministry of Cru. He is the national director of that. He's been at the, University of Wisconsin, UCLA, USC, and University of Minnesota. So amazing schools, and we've prayed for him every step of the way. God is using him in a national way, and I'm really excited about him being here today. What happens sometimes when you speak to students at noon in the summer is students pop in at 12:30, 12:45. We may see some of that, and that's another great reason we record. So this is a presentation that isn't just for students, though. We've got some parents who are here, and what you're going to share and what you're going to hear and learn today, I think is going to be a blessing to you. So would you welcome up a gift really to Wooddale Church? James Medina, come on up here. We're going to let you do your thing.
Thank you, Pastor Brian. Appreciate that. It is a blessing to be here this morning, afternoon already. Let's see. I got to figure out how to do the clicker. There it is. Okay. So this is my family. Like Pastor Brian said, I've been part of Wooddale for a long time, and it's been a blessing to be part and call this place home. I would say my spiritual foundation started just down the hall. Sweaty little shy kid having to sit in that gym. I can count the bricks in this room. I can know them. They're very much part of my story, part of my journey, both for good and for bad, because like every teenager that goes through growth in life, there are good things and there are hard things, and part of my story. I'm not sharing too much about that, but I am grateful for Wooddale Church and the legacy that it has been for me, and also to be able to be a representative wherever I go, whether that's Minnesota or the dreaded Wisconsin or the West Coast. It's fun to be able to say that I'm part of the Wooddale family. So I also want to shout out, Brian talked about the legacy of Wooddale Church. Amy is here also. She's part of my youth experience and working through just a lot of things and being able to see a friendly face that's also in ministry. So it's really cool. This is my family, my wife Elizabeth, my two boys, Santiago, Rafael. These are things that I love to share with college students because it's very irrelevant that I'm married and have kids, but they think it's funny, and it's a pretty decent joke. It hits generally most of the time. But my two boys, we live in Richfield, and we love being part of the local school, and they're growing up in a dual language school, which is really fun and exciting. And so, like Brian said, I'm in the national director for Destino, which is the Latino campus ministry. So a lot of my work is national, and my wife is the all-star. She does stuff locally at the U and at Bethel, helping lead, coach, and disciple students, as well as she's on a national team as well with our HR. So I've been on staff with Cru for 15 years, so I've done campus ministry for quite a while, as well as 4 years as a student at the University of Minnesota. I've been around campus ministry and then youth ministry. So this is something that I'm very passionate about and excited to talk about. As well as being a first-generation college student, I've had to navigate a lot of things that were pretty scary and intimidating, and I love being able to talk to parents, talk to students about what's coming ahead in this season of life. And so the theme and the goal of thriving is very much something that feels unattainable sometimes, but actually is something that I believe is possible. And so hopefully what you hear is an encouragement and a place of inspiration. As well as when I talk about campus ministry or college life, there's maybe one or two of you who are here or listening. I think college ministry or campus ministry or being a young adult is something that is there's a duality to it. There's this side of fear or uncertainty or concern, right? What's my kid going to experience? Where are they going to go? How are they going to eat? All those things. And then there's a great opportunity. There's this emerging generation of Gen Z and old millennials and young millennials, students who believe that they can make a difference in the world. And so as I work with college students, I truly believe that there's a generation of people who will lead our country and our nation and the world, and they have great ideas and influence. And that's happening. That's going to happen. So when we talk about how to thrive spiritually, We need to both acknowledge the duality of it's difficult, it's challenging being a young adult or a college student, as well as there's a great opportunity. So, in the promo, you saw this quote that my mentor shared with me when I first started out as a leader in Southern California, and it says that you will be the same person you are today as you will be 5 years from now, except for the experiences you have, the people that you meet, and the books that you read. And I love that line because it's simple, it's easy to remember, and I believe it's true. That we are the culmination, and even your parents and those who have invested in you are this continuation of a legacy of experiences and people and learning that's passed on generation to generation. So you can take that and you can, like all advice, it can be good advice, it can be bad advice. You can throw it away, or you can internalize that and believe it, right? And so based on a group like this, you've all had different experiences, you've learned many things. If I were to give you the mic right now, I'm sure there's something you're passionate about that you could talk about for a long time. And so that's, as I continue to work with students, I think about these things because I believe that those are three key areas that we're going to talk about today that are super helpful in helping you thrive, okay? And so here's my first question to the audience. Can someone share boldly, or just share, who is someone that's been influential in your life? What, just a person, it could be a name or a position. What's someone that's been influential in your life? Dave McCollum, oh, legend. What a legend, yep. Good. Who else? Pastor Dale, oh yeah, that's a softball, there you go. That's awesome, Pastor Dale, was for you. Who else? Heather Fleece. Yes, the grip of death. Yes, Heather Fleece makes an impression on you for sure, right? It should be, go ahead, one more. Dallas Willard, great, that's a good one. You can easily probably in your mind, maybe not say it out loud, think of someone who you remember, could be a grandparent, could be a friend, right? People leave impressions. People stick with us, right? It could be strangers even on the street, right? That you'll remember their actions or attitudes or things that they do, right? Same with memories and experiences. What's a favorite memory or experience that you have had in your life that you are proud about or excited about? Someone over there at McDonald's table. Summer camp. Oh, cool. What was cool about summer camp? People. Awesome. What else? What other experience? Travel, right? Different places, seeing the world. Beautiful. I remember taking a roller coaster down the Great Wall of China. That is an experience I'll never forget. Mainly because I thought I was going to get tetanus. But it was an incredible ride, an incredible experience, right? So again, people, experiences, just phenomenal things that stick with us. All right, so this is my demographic that I work with a lot. When I think about working with college students, when I see a freshman on campus, this is generally what goes through my mind, maybe because I'm getting older. But fresh kicks, cool attitude, running to class, super excited, mom and dad drop them off. They're super pumped, right? And they become sophomores. Deep in the books, pretty tired, not so much whatever they're wearing is whatever they can find that's clean that day. Obviously, these are generalities here. Junior year, you're still asleep, you're still walking through it, but you're deep in your studies. You are becoming experts and proficient in your collegiate experience, what you're doing, your expertise, things like that. And then something that we can all identify by your senior year, that is basically how it felt. You are pinching pennies together, you're finding work, you're thinking about your future, how are you going to pay for things. Maybe mom and dad have cut you off. So, whether you are at a four-year school, a technical school, you're working a trade right out of college, or at a high school, or you're just a young adult, I think whatever the timeline that you are on, this is what I've found to be true, is that everyone is looking for and trying to figure out who they are in their stage of life. Now, if you're coming out as a high school student, you've probably been told a lot of these things. You've probably been explained what you're supposed to do and why you're supposed to do it. Maybe you haven't actually been told the why, but you're told the what. And so college and the young adult phase, I would say, is the beginning of moving towards new experiences that help you grow in adulthood. And so it is significant that in this 18 to 25-year-old window, that you are becoming someone. And so who are you becoming is the question, okay? So for our goal of thriving, These are the three areas that I think are worthy of investment to explore. Your experiences, they shape how we live in the world. Your relationships, they connect us to the world. And then learning. It's a lifetime journey. Okay, so those are the three areas that we're going to explore a little bit more. I think if we invest in them, we'll see what thriving and flourishing can be. So here's my question. When you think about a young adult, a young person, or just humans in general, what are characteristics of someone who is thriving? Good lunch is thriving. So that one's off the table. What else? What would be something that describes or looks like thriving? Okay, there's resources, there's wealth, right? Okay. Physical health, good. There's some social connection, okay. Okay, stability, that's good. That's something people desire in this season. Low stress, good time management, okay. Good. I like the diversity of answers here. I also kind of like that it's a little bit tricky to answer, right? Because I think everybody is answering and thinking about this question differently. Okay, my next question is, what does it look like, but what does it feel like? What does it feel like to thrive? Energizing, good. Joyful, great. Okay. Do you have a follow-up statement on the uncomfortable? That's very insightful. Good. So with a sense of a feeling of thriving, there can be a sense of uncomfortable, like tension or stress that comes with that. One more. There's purpose. Okay. So I like to ask those two questions because I think there's what we perceive in our mind of what thriving looks like. I look at this guy. He's like, oh, he's got some nice kicks on. You know, he's got the good hair. That dude's thriving, right? I can look at the optics on the outside. Thanks for letting me pick on you. But there might be a disconnect from the outside to the internal, right? The emotional response to young adults, to youth is, I actually don't have my life put together. I don't feel like I'm thriving. So don't tell me that I'm thriving, right? And so we are really good as humans on putting on a front, right? We can look like we got it all together. You know, at Wooddale Church, we're really good at looking like we have life set, right? That's not a dig. That's just, I think, a skill. We're able to show up well. Now, the question is, what's going on underneath? And so the question of thriving is different for each of us based on our home, our experiences, and our realities, okay? So I don't have a lot of Bible passages. You know, I kind of wanted to keep this a little neutral, but I think about when I want you to, as we move on to the picture of thriving, I'm thinking of John 15. I am the vine, you are the branches. So if we remain in the vine, we are the branches, we will produce much fruit. So I love that passage because when we talk about being people, being believers, being even people who want to love our neighbors, there's a sense of we need to be committed to a lifestyle or committed to behaviors that produce something of worth and value, right? And so when Jesus talks about remaining in me, he's saying, if you remain in me, you will have the connection and the resources and the ability to produce naturally in my power fruit. And so when we're leaning into talking about thriving, I want you to think about what is the fruit of your life going to produce, okay? So first one is experiences. Okay, so I mentioned this is the process, I think, of people becoming young adults, okay? So that can be really challenging. For college students, if you're going off to college, you're living alone for the first time, right? That can be a significant marker in your experience in your life of having to live with a roommate, live with somebody else, live away from your parents. That's a big change. You're getting a roommate, now you got to navigate, what do you do with your dirty laundry? How do you keep your desk organized? Maybe you don't, right? There's all the different dynamics. If you've never had a sibling, you've never had a roommate, that it changes. Maybe for some of you have to make food for the first time, right? You're going to get Chipotle every day or every week until midway through the semester, and then that fund dries up, and you realize, oh, I have to go to the cafeteria, or I have to go and buy some ramen noodles or whatever it is. So experiences, I think, are very instrumental into young adults and collegiate experience because they begin to unearth all the assumptions that we've had about our life. They begin to challenge and press into a lot of the things that we have kind of just taken for granted. And I think that's a really good thing, right? I think about, for me, experiences that I had as a first-gen college student. I followed the Gophers from afar, but I never really experienced a Gopher game until I sat, unfortunately, at the Metrodome and watched the Gophers for the first time. I remember everybody gearing up on game day on Saturday, and everybody had tickets. I was like, how do people get tickets? I had no idea how, like, did they just get them? Like, I had no idea. So I had to go figure out how to buy student tickets, and when I did the second week, I showed up there, and I was like, this is life-changing. Like, I've been a huge fan of my high school team. I've loved watching the Gophers from afar on TV, but actually sitting there and watching them lose is great. It's phenomenal. No. During my college years was tough, Glen Mason era, blocked punt, Michigan, 41, all those things that happen. Very formative in my youth, my college experience. So experiences, right? Sometimes you get new ones, and sometimes they're just, happenstance. Like, oh, this is not new for me, right? So both the mundane and the new is really significant. So it's a move towards independence. In college you'll have a lot of opportunities. Maybe I'll pledge. Maybe I'll go Greek. Maybe I'll try this major. Maybe I'll study abroad. All of these things, I would say, are things that I encourage you to try because they are worthy of figuring out who you're going to become, right? So experience it. The next one is relationships. Okay, so the people that you meet, we generally say are really the ones that are going to shape you. This has been true your entire life, right? The people you go to church with, the people you're in school with, the people that you're around really do form you and who you're becoming. And so this is probably what I've noticed is the season of your life where you will begin to choose your own identity of those who you engage with, right? There's this huge opportunity for you to become the person that you want to be, right? I remember I don't want to be the Jesus guy on my floor. So I'm just going to keep that hush-hush. I'm going to put my Bible on my book stand, but I'm not going to keep it on my desk, right? Like I had all these things that I was thinking about. I love Jesus, but I was like, I don't really know if I want to be that guy in college. Or it could be I know this dude was really shy, but now he's like this party guy on the floor. And like, oh, so this guy's really trying to explore who he's going to be. He's leaning and hanging out with these types of guys. He wants to be with this group of people. So I say relationships are exploratory, but they're also, at the end of the day, by the end of your collegiate experience, the people who you stick around, people who stick with you, are the ones that are your biggest allies and advocates. And it's not a liability here. I'm saying your relationships really are the people that you begin to do what is impossible because you have a group of people that support you. And I would say that's true right now for me and my family. The reason why we go to Edina is because of the relationships that we have. We love that we live life with, we raise our kids with, that we are engaged with, a community of people who not just think that we think differently, but we are committed to an identity as a group that what believers do is we attend church, we serve in church, we engage in our community, and we share the gospel when appropriate in a loving and kind way. That's what the relationships that I want to be connected with. That's the choice that I have made, right? So what kind of kid are you going to be? Are you going to be the studious kid, the fun guy, the party guy, the build the resume type of person? You want to be with people that can help you pursue those things, right? As a campus minister, we are a campus organization. So I would also say the groups and organizations you're a part of really will bleed into kind of what the opportunities and experiences that you'll have. So for us, we just finished up a summer mission in Colorado. Life-changing experience for the 18 students that came with me. Their lives will never be the same. They all said that, right? If you take a step of faith and go do something new, you're going to experience something that you've never experienced before, right? Study abroad falls into that, a missions trip, an internship, all those things. Okay. Last one, learning. Lots of different types of learning, right? The books that you read was in the quote, but I would say nowadays people read less books and listen or podcast or do whatever or video YouTube you're learning. There are many, many, many different ways we learn, right? So I'm not just talking about left brain kind of like information processing, but we're experiential people. And so we are learning by doing, we're learning by seeing, we're learning in all sorts of ways. And so probably the encouragement I have here is investing in your learning, not just academically, but how can you gain an experience, how can you learn from someone else in a way that you will not be able to outside of the season that you're in? So I say college is the place where we should be challenged in what we think, right? Professors are assuming you don't know what you don't know, right? So you walk in, they're going to tell you what you need to learn. Now, that might be at a conflict with your faith background. That might be at a conflict with your social, economic background. And that is the part of the experience, relationship, and learning that you're doing all together when you show up on college campuses. I remember walking into my 350 chemistry lecture and thinking, I don't belong here. Because there's all these people that are asking questions that I have no idea what they just asked. And that was how God showed me that I am not going to be a doctor because I have no idea how to do chemistry. And when I failed that class, that was a great learning experience. So God is funny, you know? It's all Brian's fault here because I went to Guatemala and I did some translating. I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to make some money. I'm going to be a doctor and I'll translate and do that on the side. And then I show up in freshman year and man, I am not a chemist. I could blame my high school, but I'm going to blame Brian instead. Easy target. So learning is all about failure and success, and there's all sorts of things that you'll hear about learning, right? But what I love about the collegiate experience is that you are learning from other people, you are learning from your mistakes, you are learning from your new experiences, and it is in a culture that is very different than what you grew up with, most likely. So if you went to a suburban school and you're in an urban school, you're being exposed to different ways of thinking, ways of living. It's a beautiful thing. And so for the parents in the room, you know, there's the reality of, you know, maybe my second passage is Jesus tells us to fear not, I have overcome the world, right? That even when our faith is challenged, it is a good thing. It is a good thing that we should lean and grow and be willing to understand why, so that we are not just following and becoming disciples who just copy, but actually disciples who are willing to walk by faith, okay? So, I couldn't talk about campus ministry or college life without challenges. I thought this photo was interesting because my boys still have stuffies, and it's kind of like leaving the stuffy behind, right? You're becoming an adult, and there's some challenges that come with leaving and cleaving and following, you know, becoming someone as a person outside of your family, right? So, number one thing I think we experience in college campuses, if you're not feeling it right now, it might intensify as just the mental health struggle, right? It is stressful, there's pressure, there's anxiety, it comes from performance, it comes from finances, it comes from social things. It is real, right? And so your mental health and Jesus is really a significant thing to acknowledge as you go about finding a place to be, people to know, and things to do. As well as we are probably one of the most isolated communities, generations. Probably we're leaning more towards isolation than being interconnected, right? You can argue with that in your experience, but I would say most students feel more isolated than connected. And so that creates another problem, right? There's a huge significant spiritual disinterest right now, right? And this is a question for the church at large. How does our faith and what we teach and what we do actually inform the world that we live in, right? So if you're not experiencing the world, then how can you talk about the world? If you can't talk about the world with a non-believer, how can you actually share the gospel to them about those things? So again, I'm leading into the Christian thing right now. So, but those are significant challenges, right? Whatever your faith background, there's a disinterest. Finances, cost of college is getting more expensive. I think you'll see more and more people find alternative routes for education. You can always get a great education. Elon Musk, he said, everything you want to know is on the internet is for free. That's true, but you're going to do that in isolation. And that's my argument against it, is that you're missing out on people and experiences that maybe aren't worth $70,000, but they're worth something for a year or two. Okay, that's my personal perspective. Gen Z, you know, you're in the room. You know what you like, you know what you don't like. For the older people in the room, they care more about being like having an impact in the world around them than just talking about stuff and not actually doing anything. So this is a story of one of the things that I experienced this past year. I had an intern who I helped raise money for to work for, and she changed her job. She changed her decision on where she would work for the next year 4 times. Not because she wasn't committed, but because she was worried about, am I making the wrong decision, or am I missing out on something else? And so there was a perspective or thought on kind of the idol of open options a long time ago. I think it was like the early mid-2000s. We live in a society that gives you a lot of options in the world, right? This is your Starbucks order. You can pick whatever you want. That's not a criticism. That's a blessing and a benefit. But what it also does is that it prevents us from actually feeling confident in any choice we make. Are we missing out on anything? Therefore, it immobilizes young people from making a decision and feeling okay with it. And so it removes the faith component, I think, or the risk component. So those are some of the challenges. Those are not things that are going to shut us down, but they're opportunities for us to consider, right? And lastly, this idea of flourishing. I think to flourish, when you think about the tree or any type of fruit or whatever picture comes into your mind of flourishing, comes from that comment about stress, like that through difficulty and challenges, oftentimes are what lead us to experience some of the best things in our life, right? I think about all the ways that I hated experiences that I had, yet made me the person I am today, right? Or the people who said and called my junk out in college, and I'm a much better person because of those things. So flourishing, I think, requires us to continue to have this level of faith or belief in something to take a big step and risk. So that's for students and for parents. You do need to have faith. You need to say, I trust you, the person that I've helped raise, and I trust that you are in the Lord's hands, okay? So it's a deep encouragement. One of the things I love talking about for juniors and seniors, and now I think is more and more important for high school seniors throughout all of time, is considering what is your holy ambition for what you're doing, okay? College is preparing you to do all sorts of things. You are becoming an expert in a field if you're very technical or an engineer. You are getting training in that. They will not prepare you for what your calling is in your life. They're preparing you for a type of vocation. That is a skill set that's very important. I want my doctors to actually be good at chemistry. That's a good thing. But the care, the emotion, the empathy, the purpose, the direction that that person has gone on really does matter to their community and their people. So flourishing, I believe, is talking about not just picking a vocation, but what is your calling and your holy ambition for why you're doing what you're doing, right? And that's what I love to encourage. There's tons of scriptures that I would point to where God invites us to follow him, not just to do something, but to be part of his bigger plan, right? And I think that's out there a little bit. My old campus director, former global partner here, strong ties to Wooddale Church, Bob and Jill Foos, they believed in me as a sophomore in college to lead a small group on campus. I thought they were insane. Why would you ever pick this shy, really quiet kid to lead a small group in Frontier Hall? But their belief in me was that they saw someone who's willing to, by faith, make disciples. And Bob and Jill would always talk about, we want to send graduates from the University of Minnesota, from Wooddale Church, more committed to making disciples and making money. Whatever they do, that they would be committed to fulfilling the Great Commission. That was their calling. That's what brought me in. Hook, line, and sinker, yes. If I'm going to steward my time, my talent, my treasure, what do I want to be part of? This is what I want to be part of. This is not what God's calling you to do. God's calling me to do this, right? I don't know what he's calling you to do, but that's for you to figure out. So, the flourishing comes from your experiences, the people, the things that you learn, connecting the dots a little bit and still not knowing what's on the other side after you graduate. So, by faith. Let's see. Okay. We're going to, my slide went away. Okay, so I had a slide on tips and suggestions, so I'm just going to have to read them to you. And then I'm going to have some questions. We'll have some Q&A. Okay, so this, I believe, is one of the best things that my wife and I have heard in terms of suggestion to start from like 13, 14, 15 to even now. You could even do it even if you're a senior graduating high school, is to find people who you can learn from and shadow in the things that interest you. So Tim Elmore, he does a lot of stuff on generations. I highly encourage you to read his stuff. He talked about this exercise that he does with his kids that we're going to plan to do with our kids, is pick 3 or 4 people that you trust and you know that are in different fields, and have your kids shadow them for a day. It's take your kid to work day, kind of. But my aunt, my sister-in-law is a graphic designer and owns a graphic design business in Des Moines. My son, who's 6, loves art. She is my number one candidate that he will go shadow Aunt Sarah and learn how to press, do letterpress on her old print machine, how to do graphic design, how to mix colors. That's going to be like, we're going to send him to go watch her, what it looks like to have your own graphic design business, have your own industry, and what does it look like to do that successfully. My brother-in-law is a water engineer. He works at HDR. He does some incredible engineering. My other son, huge linear type of kid. I'm going to send him to Uncle Andy, right? I've got a friend who's in medical sales, okay? You're going to follow Uncle Steve, and you're going to watch him for the day. The benefits of those experiences and relationships and learning all together will tell you, no, I want nothing to do with that. That seems like that's a great thing for you, not a great thing for me. You're a senior in high school, go shadow someone that your family knows. I don't know. What are you somewhat interested in? You don't have to actually do it. You actually go follow them for a day and learn and be willing. What that's going to teach you is not just about the industry. Can you show up to an environment you don't know? Can you learn from someone you've never really met? And can you talk about what you learned to somebody else? Because when you get interviewed someday, when you apply for a grant, when you apply for a scholarship, you can say, hey, I met someone who does that type of work, and this is what I learned. Is this also true for you? And you've made an instant connection with them. Trust is built. Opportunities are formed. And now you have some relational capital to work with, and opportunities will open before you. This is all stuff I had no idea when I went to college. So now I'm telling you guys because I think this is super valuable. That's a suggestion, is relationships, learning experiences, figure out a way to learn from other people. That's free capital, right? So finding mentors, doing those things. Wooddale has a great mentoring program, which is super cool. Take assessments. It's kind of nerdy. You know, Pastor Kyle, StrengthsFinder guy. Another friend of mine did the StrengthsFinder with their high schooler. They actually have words and language to say when they apply for scholarships and apply for colleges. You don't want to be that high school senior that says, oh, I'm really good at talking to people. That's not a very compelling strength to say in an interview. But you say, I have the strength of communication. And communication is really helpful in all these different areas that I have found in communicating and working with people and doing those things. So the same thing when I do with juniors and seniors in college is you work through your strengths, you work through different assessments and how God has wired you, how you've been built, so you can do what you're really good at. Let's see. Do things that are challenging, try new things, have a hobby, and get rest, right? All those things are tips that I would suggest for college students for thriving. There's a lot more that I could add, but I'll stop there. And that's what I have for us, and then we can do some Q&A.
Awesome. Hey, let's give James a hand. That was amazing. Really quick, at your tables. So if you're at a table with people and if you're alone, maybe get to a table, all right? I want you to talk about 2 things that you're going to take out of what James said, and then we're going to come back to him and ask some questions, all right? But 2 things out of today's lesson that you're going to apply to your life. So maybe it's the books you read, places you go, people you meet. Maybe it's one of those other things. But take just a minute here, and we'll give you like 3 minutes at your tables to talk that out. All right, you've got about 1 minute left, and I am going to come around with the microphone. I'm going to ask you like what the best insight at your tables were, so you better have an answer for me, all right? So don't be like faking it here, because the microphone's coming, all right? So just a warning, you got 1 minute left. A minute's way too long. So I'm going to come over to this table first. Is this? I'm seeing you're being pointed at. Who's got our best insight here? Right here. All right. So I'm going to have you give me your name and what your best insight is today.
I'm Caleb, and we all three of us kind of said the job shadowing or internships would be really helpful. So that's what stuck out to all three of us.
So Caleb, if you were going to shadow somebody today on a job, what would that be? Who would that be? What would the industry be? Do you have somebody in mind?
I'd probably shadow my dad. Just working in like a corporate business environment would be interesting to see.
Awesome. I love that. All right, I'm coming over to this table. Who's got the insight here? Right here?
So I guess I took away the job shadowing thing as well. It's really helpful. I'm gonna be a junior in college, so like I'm kind of reaching that area where it's like, oh, I probably should be figuring out what I want to do post college. Yeah. I guess like a
Dad is laughing at that comment, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he thinks that's funny.
You know that empty wallet picture James had up there? It's coming. It's like no.
No. Yeah, but yeah, so that was awesome.
So for you, what would that industry be? Do you think if you were to shadow someone?
That's a great question. I think I'm looking to go into the business world. So like I have a couple neighbors that have like interesting jobs that I like want to reach out to, and like I have a couple family friends and like parents' parents, yeah.
Awesome. All right. I'm coming over here to our mighty table of two. What do you think? What was it out of James's talk for you that you said, boy, this is where it's at?
Well, we started talking the job shadow as well, which I agree. I actually am a career counselor and have worked at the University of Minnesota, and that is invaluable. But along those lines, the one that we didn't get to discuss, I would say, would be that this generation wants to actually have impact, not just talk about things. And I just think that that ties in really nicely to the way that we're all designed by God and to figure out that calling. So
I love that. I loved it. Did you know each other ahead of time? All right. Connection. There you go. I love it. All right. Who's got it? Amy? Everybody's pointing at you, Amy. Here we go.
I feel singled out right here. It's okay. Even just going back in the beginning when James mentioned the John 15, the reference about I'm the vine, you are the branches, you produce fruit and whatnot. That idea, committed to a lifestyle or behaviors that produce good things. Just changing the mindset of, instead of teaching our young people, our youth, and I work with a lot of young adults who are asking these questions about, it's not just like, this is right, this is wrong, but saying, this is the person I want to be, and how do I commit to a lifestyle that makes me into that person? Because you don't become that person overnight, but it really is an accumulation of lots of choices that go along the way.
Awesome. Man, such wisdom in this group. All right, over here, who are we pointing to? Oh, Kathy, following her daughter. Let's see, who's got the better comment here, mom or daughter?
Okay, well, any of you know me know that I don't even have kids who are looking at college. They're well beyond that. But you said something that really stuck out to me. You said, everyone is looking for and figuring out who they are at their stage of life, which means I'm looking at and figuring out who I am at my stage of life. Amy is. Curtis is. We're all at different stages, but we're all figuring that out.
All right. Anybody in this room who's over the age of 50, if that statement that she just said is true, would you stand up for me really quick? If you are still figuring out who you are, yeah. Okay. And yeah. And if you're under the age of 50, you can do that too. All right. But yeah, I mean, I think that's, yeah. I just wanted to pick on Pastor Dan because, that guy, he's as old as dirt, man, and he stood up. So, all right. Anybody else? This table. Who's got the comment here?
We talked about a few things on the whole experiences, relationships, learning. It all fed into each other. The relationships bring you to different experiences. Those experiences bring you to different people. The learning brings you to different people, relationships, it goes around and around and around. I agree with Kathy. It never changes. So that was a challenge to me, and at any stage in life. But the thing that really like on the challenge of that or the warning I heard was, especially in college, but really at any point, is the isolation. And so that kind of stuck out to me a lot, because that's a lot different than when I was in college versus my kid going to college. And so being aware of that and kind of how do we handle that when we're talking from afar and I don't see that because I'm not there all the time. So kind of being aware of that and how to look out for things like that.
You guys are amazing. James, I mean, they could be teaching up here, but
Exactly.
James is teaching up here. So what I want to do is give you all a chance to ask James some questions, because I got to tell you, like, even when you were in high school, this is like one of the wisest people that I know. God's just given him some amazing wisdom, and Amy the same way. I'm just so proud of these two. But what questions do you have for James about anything as it relates to kind of that college experience, thriving, going back to that whole idea of books you read, places you go, people you meet? What questions do you have? Ken Castor. I'm gonna give this to you so you can be heard.
The published man.
James, your experience working with college students, what is it that it is breaking them right now? What are they hitting that's just ripping them apart and they're not making it?
There's too many memes that I could share about that one. I think the complexity of the world, I think the complexity that the world that we live in, and then trying to find answers to those complex problems. So I would say there's a general sense of anxiety and being overwhelmed. That's a really great question to ask that I think is different geographically and socioeconomically, right? So I would say in the demographic that I work with, Latino and Hispanic students, the financial cost of affording school and education is what's breaking them. I talked to 3 churches this last month, and all of them said, I would love for my students to go to school, but we can't afford it. I know that's not true for communities that I grew up in. Like, it's assumed that you go to college, and there's a way to pay for it. So that's one thing. I would say there's just economic uncertainty, or kind of the market outside. I think there's the connection to Gen Z would be that because there's this general concern of like what's it going to be like when I get out there. I want to make sure I don't make the wrong mistake, that they're maybe not going for what their dream desired outcome would want to be. So there's this general apprehension to say yes. So that's a kind of a vague answer, but I think all the young people in the room probably have a different answer of what's breaking them or what burdens their heart.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Another question. Yeah, I'm going to bring this up there. Sorry, just so they can hear online.
Just curious, as you said, there's a growing disinterest in the church, and that's a bigger problem. You also acknowledged that when you went to Frontier Hall, it was like, okay, well, I don't want to be this like Jesus freak. Mm-hmm. My son will be a freshman at Territorial this fall.
Okay.
He did PSU at Bethel last year. How do you give them? What advice do you have about giving them courage and confidence to live out their faith and to get connected?
That's a great question. That's literally one of the things that I walked away looking back on that experience. I feel like the Lord forced my hand. I had a very strong party roommate. Like, Dad brought beer into the fridge. Like, that's the environment. So I ran away from that after a month of like, my roommate is passed out on my bed, and I heard that if I don't take care of him, he might die. That was my first couple weeks on campus. So when someone knocked on my door and said, hey, there's a small group down the hall, I'm like, okay, and I just went. So I couldn't hide from that anymore. I was like, yep, I don't want that, and I'm going to try this. So part of learning is just, sometimes you just have to be confronted with the reality of the world. Now, it's a phase, right? There's the party phase, and everyone does that, and there's consequences to your phase, right? Sometimes that can lead to really damaging things. I think drinking on campus is part of the culture, but it can be a really dangerous part of the culture, right? Just do any Google searches on frat parties and sororities, and especially when I was in Southern California, man, it was sad. Now, that's not going to change that culture. That's going to exist, right? So again, as a believer, I would say, how do you maintain a healthy level of distance, but also know that there are people who need to be loved too, and that you can You can be a good human to them. So for your son, I would say, what do you believe is good or not good about those choices, that behavior, right? Do you want it enough to leave that behind and go to this alternative? You don't even have to go to be the Christian guy, but you just there could be other communities for you. But I would encourage you, faith is what helped me get through my college experience, absolutely, hands down, because of the anxiety and stress and pressure. You have to put it somewhere. Yoga, meditation does work, but I would think it falls short of speaking to the core identity and need that humans have. So T-Hall has a reputation. I think it's gotten a little bit better, but I don't know. Depends on your CA.
All right, another question. Yeah.
So we have 5 kids, and as you're talking about that, we have 1 in college. And what resources would you recommend specifically for plugging them in and getting them to think about what are your interests, and short of the mentoring and that, what are some things we can to get that process started and get them in the mindset of, I need to be thinking about this, and here's the things I am really interested in, so that we have a targeted place to go and shadow when they get there?
Yeah, that's great. That's a good question, right? The diversity of children and their thoughts and interests and experiences, right? So I think that's why I say you need to start early and try to see what sticks, right? So I think when you're visiting your son in college, bring one of your children with, so that they can shadow and walk alongside. Like, oh, this is what a college campus is like. If they're interested in art, go to the art department. If they're in dance, go to the dance department, right? Dance in college is very different than dance in high school, right? Cheer in college is very different than cheer in high school. So the more you can expose them to, there's opportunity for you to continue your dream and passion outside of that. Again, there's different assessments that you could take. There's Strengths Finders, there's Myers-Briggs, there's take it or leave Enneagram. But I would say spiritual gifts assessments too. If you do the pathway thing here, or the whatever the test is, the
Find Your Shape.
Yep,
deal
shape
that we do,
assessment.
Purpose.
Thank you. Those are just kind of clues. Ask your kids, what would you like if we could provide a camp for you, or go on a trip somewhere, like, where would you want to go? And then you start to believe in them that they can pursue those things. And maybe you're already doing that. I'm assuming you're taking interest in your kids. But, if there's a concert that happens, or there's an athlete that they really like, or an industry that they, for me, going on a missions trip, for me, that was the easiest pathway, because it was like, I saw music, I saw medical, I saw water resourcing, like helping people. Like, I was able to tangibly see how people's needs were being met. My core desire was to help people. I wanted to be a doctor to help people. I would say I'm doing that in a better way than I could have as a really failed chemistry doctor, right? I'm doing, spiritually speaking, I'm investing in people and caring for them much better than I could have pursuing something that wasn't for me, right? So
It's really good. The questions, we've got time for maybe 2 more today. Anybody else? So James, you talked about assessments a little bit. If you were to, you recommended a few of those. Which one for you personally has been the most helpful? What was most insightful?
Yeah, I would say the Strengths Finders for me was the most helpful personally. Myers-Briggs was helpful professionally. I've done a couple other ones that were just okay. I think language is the important thing. Do you have the language to communicate who God has made you to be, or who you are, right? Or there are things that are true of me. So like, for me, my restorative strength is my number 1. If you know what restorative is, I see problems everywhere. So I think that's a problem, but I don't want to just leave it as a problem. I want to unearth the solution to get to where we want to go. I want to fix that problem. But how it was perceived in my family was, I'm negative. So I was viewed as the basement level of my strength. Now that I actually have a language to say, no, this is actual positive thing, and it's not just a negative thing, I'm able to have the confidence to say, I see things that people don't see. And so because of that, I walk into a room and I say, okay, well, this person doesn't know this person, and that person doesn't know that person, and that's the problem. That's the problem here. If I just connect these people, then everyone's going to do better. I'm contributing to the greater good when I live out my strength. If I suppress that strength, or my belief strength, I only do what I do because I believe in it. That's not true for Amy. I don't know if Amy has belief or not. And so that's helped me understand people better, right? Ken doesn't have my strengths, so I shouldn't hold him to what I'm good at. So that's why I think as I've gotten to know people, yes, they put people in boxes. Yes, their language. Yes, it's words that people might not like. But it's a starting place, right? And so when you walk into your freshman year and you know 5 things about you that are true, that you've seen and have tested, you have a confidence to walk into that class or walk into that community, and you feel better. You feel equipped. You feel stronger. And I think that makes a difference.
And I agree with James there on that Strengths Finder assessment. If you've never taken that, like as a high school student, you can do that. Pastor Kyle's actually going to be here in August, and he's going to be doing something for parents on how do you help your children understand their unique strengths. If you're going to college soon and that's something you've never taken, if you want to do that, you can buy the book, and you can just go to strengthsfinders.com, take the test. And I've coached dozens of people through that. I'd be happy to provide that for you for free if you're in this group today, and just kind of
nice.
sit down with you and kind of
Free
talk
is nice.
through how those strengths work. Because James is right. Like your strength is also, at the basement level can be your greatest weakness too. And there's 5 unique strengths it's going to kind of show you. And the chances of any 2 people having those 5 strengths in the same order, operating in the same way is like 1 in, 10 million or something like that. So it's one of those evidences to me that God really did make each one of us unique. And he made us in such a beautiful way. And every one of us matters, like where you are at the table. Like if everybody was the same, you just wouldn't need to be sitting at that same table. We need each other. And knowing that like James is a restorative guy, that explains so much, right? And explains, and man, to have you in the organization that you're in leading with that strength is such a huge thing. So the last question I wanted to ask you is, you represent something called a parachurch organization. It's an organization that isn't the church, but it's a Christian organization that partners with churches and comes alongside of churches. And you're at really the University of Minnesota, for those of you who don't know, kind of between Central Florida and University of Minnesota, they kind of compete with each other for the highest number of students on campus. It is a major, major, major university, and there's a lot of parachurch organizations, a lot of groups on campus. And so some of you are going to go to a Christian college, some of you are going to go to a trade school, some of you are going to go to a community college, some of you are going to be at a big state school. So representing a parachurch, like for that kid who's maybe going to a big state school somewhere, like what are some of the other organizations, just kind of explain how that works and how they might connect with a group on their campus.
Yeah, so the wonderful thing about being at a large university or a small university is that there's generally a decent amount of resourcing. So when I was a student at the University of Minnesota, 2004, there was maybe 20 Christian organizations on campus. No. Around there. Now there's about 60 plus. So the amount of resourcing that's available, Wooddale's there now, so like it's just very different in the college space. Every group has something unique to offer. Most likely, you will be connected by the people that invite you or the people that you know. That's generally the best way to get connected, right? That's why we go to a new church, is you are invited by somebody else or you know someone who speaks highly of that. So I would say Cru is not probably the best for everyone. Cru wants you to be involved, but you might identify with the Navigators or InterVarsity or a church on campus. That might be the best route for you. So find ways that you connect with their vision and their mission and what they're about. We are all about winning people to Christ and building them in their faith and going on missions experiences. Some people don't want to be part of that, or that's not their vibe. That's okay. In Destino, we talk about culture and we talk about ethnicity and how that connects to God. For some Latinos, that's not what they want. They just want academics. Okay, that's great. So explore, that's why I say your experiences and the people, go find them out, do some research with your kids, like what groups are here on campus, and sometimes God's providence just puts you in the right place at the right time. That's what happened with me. I had no idea campus ministry existed, and I grew up here. I had no idea. I'd never met anybody on campus ministry. And the last thing I would say is this. This is to the young people, this is to the old people. Believe that God's grace is enough to cover any mistake that you make and all the mistakes that happen afterwards. If we believe that God is a God of grace and love and mercy, if you pick the wrong major, his grace is enough. He'll work it out. If you date the wrong person God will heal you and bring you through restoration process if you are living by faith. If you care more about who you're becoming and not what you're doing, right? People who are devoted to a title or a salary, you will not have the same experience as someone who's walking step by step by faith with God. So that's what I leave you with, God's grace.
Great advice to end it, guys. Hey, if you want to stick around afterwards, you've got questions for James, just feel free to come on up here. Thank you for being with us today. I'm just going to close with some prayer and let you go. So, God, thank you for today. Thank you for the chance to just connect as people across generations. Thanks for the wisdom that James poured out to us today. Pray that you bless him and Elizabeth and their boys, and thank you for the great things they're doing, not only at the University of Minnesota, but leading nationally. And God, I just pray for each one of these young adults that are here today who have so much of life ahead of them, some in college, some getting ready to go to college, some recently through. God, would you just help them to latch on to what James said at the end there? Thank you, Lord, that you're a God that's not afraid of our mistakes, that you're a God who is a God of grace, and you show that over and over again. And God, I pray that you just allow us to be people who continue to pursue you like you pursue us. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks, guys.